Welcome to Mike's Motorworks, and today is a special day for the show. One, because we get to flog Dag's LA-Phant build, his 437 stroker motor on the dyno, and we get to go ahead and put up the 390, the one that's going into Project Fast Fish, on the dyno as well. So that's two different dyno pulls, all right? So here's what's going to happen. One, we got to get there and we got to get things mounted, all righty? We got to get things mounted on the dyno. Two, once it's mounted on the dyno, we got to make sure everything is connected correctly, right? And, we'll have an initial test pull. Then three, we're going to give the LA-Phant, and that's going on the motor first, a full flogging session, all righty, and see what our numbers are. And we'll check in with Pop on occasion to see how things went, and we'll broadcast some numbers on that build. Then we got to switch over to the 390 and go ahead and go through the same progression with the 390. Now, obviously, the 390 is going to be a different setup because that's not really a high horsepower, high stroke build, but it is significant because it's going to be a street motor, and we want to make sure that the engine maintains significant streetability because, quite frankly, there's been a lot of doubters on that particular build. So we get to show the numbers and show where the power comes in and show that it is absolutely a streetable motor and can produce some horsepower. So let's get to it. Now, if you couldn't tell, the session is going to actually happen over a couple days. Day one, we went ahead and got this thing mounted, and that video should be playing in the background. And we were really grateful for Voss Racing to get us in for this particular session, right? One, because it's after race season, they're able to do that. And two, because they have a solid reputation of producing some really powerful engines, some of the top in their class, if you will. Now, for those not familiar with Voss Racing, Voss is a family of racers, right? Started with Big Guy, and then it went down, or their Pop, right? And then it went down to Son, and I think it'll eventually translate down to Grandson as well. And their trophy room really shows how they are good at what they do. Additionally, they go ahead and mill everything, almost everything on site. Obviously, other than a couple of key components, right? And their engines that they make are quite significant. Now, if you think 4 inches of stroke, or even the stroke that's on the LA-Phant is huge, you should see some of the cranks that these guys have. It is absolutely unreal. And the block sizes and the piston sizes and some of the intakes, right? They have milled intakes, okay, from solid single pieces of aluminum, not TIG welded sheet metal. I'm talking single solid pieces, so they can control all the numbers and make sure everything fits right, giving them a significant advantage. Now, something that Voss Racing also does is they create custom carbon fiber wheelie bars specific for drag racing. So you definitely want to check them out for that. And I'll leave some contact information in the description and above here as well. So there you go. So on to the story here. Now, the engine dyno that we're actually using today is what they call a water brake dyno. And for those not familiar with a water brake dyno, what a water brake dyno does is it effectively sends water pressure in, and there's a little turbine inside that acts like a water brake, right? One half of the turbine has these little jets that kind of spin the water around as it's turning, okay? And then the other side is like a solid plate. So it hits these little grooves and it effectively creates a real accurate idea of what you would see under a standard load, either in a race car, street car, so on and so forth. And of course, you could tune the load in with pressure and what have you. Really cool technology, right? And it's old technology, really efficient and really accurate for measuring horsepower and torque. So that's the dyno that they use. right, Pop, how was the first pull?
I thought it was amazing.
What did we get?
We got a total of 675 at 6,000 RPMs.
675 on the first pull.
First pull.
Wow, and we weren't even maxing that thing out.
No, we got to go in stages up there, and that's what we're in the process of getting to. But as far as I'm concerned, first pull at 6,000 RPMs, I'm really happy.
Yeah, 675, and it was still, that horsepower curve was still going.
It was climbing.
What was the torque rating that you saw as max?
It was in the 600s. I didn't pay real attention.
Wow, that is crazy. So we're waiting for the engine to cool, and they were saying possibly running a little bit of rich on the jet, so there might be some rejetting that we do on another date.
Well, it might have to do with the temperature of the room right now,
right,
and the fact that we're pulling cold air from the outside. We're going to be running it again probably Wednesday or later in the week, with the temperatures being a little bit closer to what we call normal Florida temperatures.
All right.
But I think it'll even do better then.
Good deal. So that was our first reaction. We saw that pull right now on the camera footage with the inside the room, and hopefully the noise was fantastic on the microphone, the recording. It sounded great when we pulled it in there, and it was just holding strong and pulling strong. So I saw those numbers flash, and I was like, oh my, we're going to get there.
And it was still climbing.
So, and what's your objective? What are you trying to hit?
Over 7.
Over 7.
And we almost hit it in the first pull at only 6,000 RPM.
That is
I think
crazy.
we got a real good chance of getting way over 7.
All righty. So we'll see how it goes. We'll get some more pulls in a little bit later on.
Real good. What was the horsepower at 5,000 RPMs?
5,000 RPM. In the room, it was... Now, one of the complaints that we are sure to receive is, oh, look at those headers, those exhaust headers. That's not going to give you an accurate reading. Well, let's go ahead and think of it like this, all right? One, we don't know what the vehicle is going into, right? Two, there was actually, we were going to use some headers that I picked up for Project Fast Fish, right? But because the heads that we got from Hughes Racing, the Indy Racing heads, right? The exhaust port is actually raised significant over stock. So we couldn't get the starter on, and we couldn't get the proper oil filter. And while we solved and remedied the oil filter problem, right, there still wasn't clearance for the big size starter to go on there, okay, because that's what Pop had that big old starter. So effectively, we went ahead and used what they had in-house. And yes, I get it, all right? If you look at the tops of the heads, there's a little holes in there where the temperature sensors would go, all right? And that's fine. Is that going to skew anything off? It could, okay? But the idea is just to get a really solid, strong baseline for where we need to be at as far as jetting and as far as where we need to be at with all the other settings. How's the engine going? How's it sounding? How's it doing under load? So on and so forth. And that's really the purpose of the dyno session. Did Dad hit his goal? And are we in the right spot for future runs once we get it into a vehicle? Now, there's also some other considerations as well. Consideration number one, that first run that you heard, okay, that was on one of the coldest days that we have had all year, right? Remember that big Arctic chill that came down and kind of froze everything out, caused big blizzards up in the New York area and what have you? Well, on that day, we were down to 48 degrees. You don't run race cars at 48 degrees, right? And that density of air is much different, right? So we were unsure about fuel readings, jetting, so on and so forth. So you don't want to tune in those conditions, but we were able to get a baseline, all right? In fact, when we pulled the spark plugs off, all right, it was clear that it was running real rich, all right? So with that in mind, all right, one of the objectives is to go ahead and get a good solid baseline with relatively ambient temperature, right? Today we're back in the 60s, okay? And things are coming back to normal like they will be in Florida. So think of it like going to the Gator Nationals, if you will, on a mildly cool day, okay? Where the track is kind of going to be able to get a little sticky with that glue on there, and the atmospheric pressure is just right. Well, that's what we have today because we have nice, clear skies. The relative humidity is down, okay? And quite frankly, it feels quite nice. A good day for a dyno session. We'll make the pull, go back to 6, and just see where we are.
Sure.
See how much better the torque is now? I mean, it's
Yes,
a little, it's
flatter,
a little
higher.
fatter.
Yeah.
It's fatter now.
I remember the before was just
Right.
early in the beginning.
Right.
It didn't
See,
stay
I
up
didn't
there.
have all the absolute numbers in there.
Okay.
So, I don't know if it's going to make 700, but it'll be close.
Okay.
Okay, it depends on, it's still doing good. It's got great torque down here. So, but see the difference? There is no difference. There's two horsepower difference. Remember, that's what I was telling you?
Yeah.
So.
All right. So we need to read the plug and see if we need to do anything with
Well,
the secondaries.
what I'd like to do is run it up to 6,500.
Okay.
All right, maybe start at about 4,000 or something.
Okay.
Which, I'll let it start about 4,000 and run it up to 6,500 just to see
Compare. Okay.
where our power is.
Something glitched on it.
Something came off.
You gotta adjust them like I'm adjusting them?
Yeah, I don't have a quick start button on mine.
Oh,
It's got a key, and you can't bump it like that.
Yeah, your quick start button is okay, turn it.
you got that one close.
I get one done, and then from there, somebody turns the crank over here, and valve opens, valve's closed, and depends on where you want to go. And I don't remember the sequence. I've got it written down there.
So there's our possible culprit for the lower power reading and that weird reading. More likely contaminated the room, causing extra carbon monoxide to get in there, carbon dioxide, and throwing out the numbers. So it wasn't clean oxygen getting into the system. Yeah, survey.
What you think?
It sounded good.
What do you think number wise? 670?
It's still got a little bit of awkwardness in it.
Yeah.
Goes up here. Just
And
kind
then
of
comes
levels
comes
out.
back, yeah.
Got a stupid fat now.
It is pretty fat. Needs some air bleed out of it.
Torque's not as clean as the other one was either.
See, it makes 592 there, 580 there. It's just fat.
Need to lean the.
Let's pull some jet out of it.
On the secondary? Okay.
Main jet, or you want air blade?
I think it needs some main jet out of it now.
It was just at the very last.
Very top and full.
Yeah.
Breaking up. It's
Yep.
going to spin out the pipe.
All right, so our big changes here came by switching out the carb. Now, our initial test pull by switching out the carb, we actually were within about 2 horsepower difference, but we're still having some signs of some sort of sinking with the, not necessarily the ignition, but something maybe even in the valving itself. But on this particular run itself, now this is the up to 6,500 RPM, when it actually stopped making horsepower at 6,000. But you can see right here, the torque-wise, we had our peak torque at, it looks like 580. And then power-wise, it was 629.2 at 6,200. But then the engine started flowing, throwing a flame out the exhaust pipe. So we got to try to figure out what that is. And that might be related to valve float or something equivocal. So let's go find out what's going on. So for those that think that, oh, you just go to the dyno room and you vlog the thing a couple times and you get your numbers and everything is instantaneous. Yeah, it doesn't always work out like that. And there are hours that are spent troubleshooting, trying to figure out where things are at. So right now we're at kind of at a stopping point because we are changing, and there goes the pump or something. There, they stop the pump or something. We are changing our valve spring seats. It is a seat, right? Right in the shim? Yeah. So we left these unshimmed when we put them in there, which you probably shouldn't do with the aluminum anyways, but hindsight 2020. By shimming these springs, we should help eliminate what seems to be a little bit of valve flow. And of course, we won't know that until such time as we have a chance to run the engine again. Unfortunately, we are running out of daylight and these guys close at a certain time, so we want to make sure that we are considerate of what they have going on. So right now, Pop is changing out to shims everywhere on all the cylinders, and we're going to try to get one side done before the end of the evening. And the next video you'll see will be us firing up the motor to see if that was indeed the issue.
He's quick at 600 RPM a second.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I made 620 there. There's your air fuel ratio.
That's not bad.
No, it's pretty good.
I'm at 620 right now
Yeah, that's
and climbing.
Huh?
And climbing.
Yeah.
It still hadn't leveled off. I just don't want it to. You think we can do 62?
Yeah, hell, we ran the thing 6,500 all the last couple times.
Did we?
Yeah.
Yeah, Bob.
Want to do 65?
Do you want to do 65? I'll run it to
You'll do anything I wanted.
That's right. We run it to 65. This is not, you know.
All right, let's. I'm happy to be perfectly honest with you
Okay,
at
well,
over
no,
6.
so am
But
I.
60, run 65 and see if it actually reaches its peak out, and we're done with that motor.
Okay.
You think we're good numbers and all
Oh,
that stuff?
yeah.
Fine?
See,
I'm
look,
happy.
That's why I put this thing on it.
All right.
Your air fuel ratio's great,
Right,
good. It's not perfect, but it's good. Starts at 12.5, it ends at 13.1.
Okay.
You know, so
A little rich, but better to be a little rich than
yeah.
So you're pretty much dialed in then, Pop. I mean,
I think
nothing's
so.
really changed since that
Oh,
first
yeah.
pull.
Just wanted to keep going.
That thing was clean then.
Yeah, that was perfectly clean.
It still wanted to go.
Yeah, it was. It was still saying more. When he hit the 65 and was letting off on it. Yeah, that's a peak. It's a little bit lower though. Yeah.
Made 635. Oil pressures just
Screaming.
a little
I'll work.
high, a little high, but
I'll work on that one.
yeah, you could probably, if you can get 20 pounds oil pressure out of this thing, so that it only got 80 at a wide open throttle,
Uh huh.
the thing will make probably another 20.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh, wow.
So,
Yeah, it takes work
Okay.
to pump that oil.
yeah, it takes a lot of work to work that oil pump.
Yeah.
All right.
That's
And
why they-
How about those smaller heads? Do you think they're subtracting anything, or is it still
The smaller headers?
the headers? Yes. Excuse me.
Yes,
Yeah.
of course they are.
Yes. All right.
All those other guys run 2-inch headers.
Okay.
All those pulls that all them guys did, they had 2-inch headers on.
But that big one only hit 570, and we exceeded that. So
Okay.
I'm happy. Okay.
There we go. So for those watching at home here, let's see here. We got horsepower over here, torque over here. We maxed out at 635 at 6,500. And torque looks like, I'm looking a little bit harder for the numbers here, 580, 584, 585. Yeah, 585 at 4,800. And our air fuel ratios were pretty darn clean. And we definitely have a happy Pop as he's writing his numbers
Absolutely.
down.